Welcome to Tech Corner at ESP Guitars. My name is Todd Binder, VP of Product Development. Today I'm going to show you how to tune and make adjustments on your ESP LTD guitar equipped with an Evertune Bridge. The Evertune Bridge is such a cool, innovative product. In the 20 plus years I've been with ESP, I have not seen anything come along that was this revolutionary, so it's a big deal. It's a really cool, sleek looking bridge. I mean, if you look at it, you wouldn't really know that, there's all this cool, crazy technology going on under the hood. If you flip it over, you look in the back and you take this plate off in here, you might kind of freak out when you see all the mechanics inside. But what's cool about this is that, yeah, this guitar has a battery, but this battery is for the pickups. There's no battery, there's no chips, there's no technology other than springs and mechanics. It's all mechanical, which is really why I like it, and it works. The additional benefits of the Evertune Bridge are accurate intonation over the entire fingerboard. You'll get spot-on intonation up here, in the middle, and towards the end, and that's a common problem you'll see on many other guitars. With the Evertune system, it takes care of all that. You won't believe how great the intonation is. Another added benefit is that when strings loosen or tighten or stretch, it's all compensated by the Evertune Bridge and it stays in perfect tune. Temperature and humidity also can affect any guitar. Your neck may bow and back bow, and you're in a cold or a hot room, traveling, you're playing a gig, whatever you're doing, the Evertune will be always compensating against that and will keep your guitar in tune at all times. Let me show you the tools that you need to work on your Evertune guitar. First, you have a digital tuner, which I have here in my rack. And then secondly, you'll need this Evertune hex key. This is a 2.5 millimeter hex key that Evertune provides with the bridge. You get this with the guitar when you purchase it. Let's go over a couple of the access points or adjustment points on the bridge. First, you're going to make the adjustment for the tuning. Whenever you tune a string, you're going to tune that string at the saddle here. You're going to insert your key right behind that string at about a 45-degree angle. This is where you'll adjust your tuning as opposed to the headstock where you would normally tune with your tuning keys. Next, you're going to use this screw right here behind the saddle. And this is going to lower or raise the saddle, which will lower or raise your string height. The last adjustment here is at the very end, and this is going to be your intonation adjustment screw. This will bring the saddle towards the end of the bridge or move it closer towards the neck, depending on what you need to adjust your intonation. Those are the only 3 screws you need to adjust, and you can do it all with this one tool. Also, you'll notice if you flip the guitar around that on the back, you've got sort of a traditional looking plate. Any of you have a Floyd Rose guitar or a tremolo guitar of any type, you may have a plate that looks similar to this where you have holes, your strings go through here, and if you take this plate off, which I'll show you real quick, you'll see the inner workings of the Evertune, but you do not need to open this plate to work on your guitar, which is very convenient. All right, here inside you see the inner workings, and it's a little complex, but you don't need to get scared when you see this. Basically, here's your stop and all the saddle modules. Each one has a different module with a spring, and it's held against the body here, and it continues from here all the way through the body to the top to the saddle. Like I said, you won't need to adjust anything inside of here. And that's the inside of the bridge or under the hood. Okay, let me briefly explain about the 3 zones that Evertune has come up with to describe the location of the saddle in relation to the string pitch or the string tension in the bridge. Whenever you're tuning or adjusting your guitar, it's important to understand and determine which of the 3 zones your saddles are in before you start. Let's plug it in. Okay. In zone 1, your string is going to be completely slacked. If you loosen the string and watch the saddle, it's going to move towards the back of the bridge. Now the string is completely slack. I'm tuning it down at the headstock and it's going slacker and slacker. That's zone 1. In zone 1, if you pull on the string, you'll notice that eventually you'll get tight enough to where this saddle will pull forward. That's moving up into zone 2. Back in zone 1, you're not active. You're basically changing the tuning with the tuning key at the headstock, and that's zone 1. Now zone 2 is when you tighten the string from your tuning key on the headstock. As you start to tighten, now watch the saddle, it starts to move forward. That's zone 2. This is the active zone that you want to be in. This is where constant tension is being maintained by the springs inside the Evertune system. In zone 2, if you pull on the string, you'll notice that the saddle moves forward and backwards, depending on where you are located inside of the zone 2. You'll notice movement in both directions. That's zone 2. You'll also notice if you try to raise the pitch at the tuning key on the headstock or lower the pitch, nothing happens. The pitch remains constant because the Evertune system is working and it's maintaining constant pitch or constant tuning. That's zone 2. Now, zone 3 is when you move the saddle forward, you tighten the string, you'll notice the saddle stops moving forward, and now the pitch starts to go up in pitch. Your tuning is being affected by the tuning key at this point at the headstock. You'd want to be careful at this point that you don't go too much past zone 2 into zone 3, because if you keep increasing the tension and the pitch, eventually you could break a string, so be very careful when you get there. In zone 3, if you pull on the string, you'll notice here at the saddle that the saddle's not moving at all. It's at the very forward position and it can't move forward anymore. That's zone 3. Now what you want to do is we want to activate every saddle and every string and put it into zone 2. We want to activate each Evertune saddle or to put it into zone 2. Loosen the low E. We're going to loosen this all the way until it becomes slack. Okay, at this point you notice that it's slack and your saddle is in zone 1. It's not moving any further. Now we start plucking the string and tuning up in pitch until the pitch remains constant. Now I'm tuning and the pitch is remaining constant. That's zone 2. Before zone 2, when it's in zone 1, the string's pitch increases with each turn of the tuning key like a conventional guitar. Evertune isn't active in zone 1. When we enter zone 2, the pitch remains constant. If we continue to tighten, the tuning key eventually will leave zone 2 and enter zone 3, at which point the pitch will continue to rise. Evertune is only active in zone 2, so make sure that every string is activated into zone 2 before moving to the next step. Low E string is in zone 2. Let's move on to the A string. We'll take it slack, and then just until it stays in constant tune. That's in zone 2. Now we'll do the D string. Okay, that's in zone 1. Now bring it up in tune until that saddle starts to move forward and the pitch remains constant. That's in zone 2. Go to the G string. All right, it's slack. Start tuning it back up. Now it's staying at a constant pitch. B string. Saddle's moving forward and the pitch is remaining constant, so we're in zone 2. Now the last string, the E string. Take that slack until there we go, we're in zone 1 now. Now we move it back up, tune it back up until it stays, saddle's moving and it's staying at constant pitch. Okay, every string and every saddle is in zone 2 now and is active. The next step is that we tune the Evertune with the 2.5mm hex key. Let me show you the tools that you need. First, you'll need a digital tuner, which I have here in my rack. And then secondly, you'll need this Evertune hex key. This is a 2.5mm hex key that Evertune provides with the bridge. You get this with the guitar when you purchase it. We're going to insert this right here. when we check the tuning if we need to tune it. Now zone 2 is the active zone that you want to be in. This is where constant tension is being maintained by the springs inside the Evertune system. So let's check the pitch. I'm just checking to make sure that I'm in zone 2 first. And it looks like on the tuner here I'm a little flat. So I'm going to insert my 2.5mm Allen wrench here and make sure it's in there good, and then you can turn it clockwise. That will increase the pitch. And I went about half a turn. According to Evertune, about every half turn is about 15 cents on the digital tuner. So if this is 50 cents here and this is 25, you'd have 15 right about somewhere in here. I'll check tuning again. It's important after you make the adjustment to the tuning to double check your saddle and your tuning again and make sure that you're in zone 2. You can do that just by watching the saddle and moving the tuning key here at the headstock. When it's not adjusting at the headstock, you're in zone 2. Okay, so we check on the tuner here and that E string is in tune. Let's move on to the B string. Check that I'm in zone 2. And it's a hair sharp. It's about 15 cents sharp or 10 cents sharp. Let's take our key, insert it here, and I'm going to go about half a turn. Let's check that B string again. After we adjust it, we want to make sure that we're still in zone 2. We're just a hair sharp, not much at all. I'm going to adjust one more time, just about 1/8 of a turn. Okay, we're in tune. Let's check the G string. I'm a little flat, so I'm going to take my key and I'm going to insert it here, and then I'm going to go clockwise. Another way to check besides tuning it is to pull on the string a little bit. You'll see the saddle move forward and backwards, so when it does that, I know that I'm in zone 2 already. Let's check the tuning. Still a little flat. I'm going to go again and do about half of a turn. And we're good. All the other strings are in tune. All right, we've completed tuning the string at the saddle. The next step will be adjusting the bend sensitivity, which will be done by watching the saddle and tuning it at the headstock. The next step will be adjusting the bend sensitivity, which will be done by watching the saddle and tuning it at the headstock. We want to start by plucking the string and tightening, tuning it up until it just goes sharp. You see the saddle stops moving, and then back off in pitch. So take it right up to this spot where it starts to go up in pitch, and then back it right off till it goes back into pitch. That's the frontmost spot where you'll be able to bend, and you're basically positioning the saddle here towards the front of zone 2, right before zone 3. And that's the position you want to be in if you want to be able to bend notes. So once you have the saddles positioned towards the frontmost location right up against that bend stop, it'll allow you to bend notes like you would on any, standard guitar. You can do bends like this. No problem. Now, I've seen some custom applications where, like you want to maybe bend your steel strings here, the plain strings, and then maybe you want your wrap strings here on the low end to not go out of pitch. Maybe you're playing rhythm or whatever it is, and you don't want those to be able to go out in pitch. In that application, you might want to lower these, move these saddles closer towards the center of zone 2. Now, if you're playing aggressively or pushing down really hard, it's not going to go out of tune. You can see even though I'm moving the string, it's staying at the same pitch, whereas these ones, allow you to bend. So there's different applications and different sort of scenarios that you may want to adjust this, and you can adjust it on the fly, no problem. Once you get used to zones 1, 2, and 3 and how your saddles react to how many turns it takes and all that, you'll get used to how this works. You can easily just move it up against that bend stop and just back it off a hair, and that's where I would start right there. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to adjust your action height or raise or lower the strings. What we're going to do is we're going to take our Evertune hex key and we're going to insert it behind the saddle, the top of the bridge. This is the spot, this is the location where you'll be able to access the height adjustment. And this is kind of opposite from a traditional bridge. In a traditional bridge you'd be adjusting it here and you'd be screwing down to raise the saddle up. In this situation, if I go clockwise like this, it's actually pushing down on the whole Evertune module, pushing it down. So clockwise will lower the string towards the frets, towards the neck. So if your action height is a little high, you'd want to check it here, and you could use a measurement tool or whatever you need there to check that out, or just by feel, and adjust accordingly here by going counterclockwise or clockwise. One thing I can also show you is that when you get the ESP LTD guitar from us and you want to change the action height, let's say you want to raise it up or lower it down quite severely and these screws are coming out, Evertune includes a different length of screw in the package. So let's say your screws are sticking out here and they're sticking out too much and it's kind of rubbing against your hand there. You can change out these screws and put a short screw in there. And that's a cool little feature because it allows you flexibility of having a different screw length or screw height here so that you can make sure that they're inset and that top of the bridge remains smooth feeling. Once you've done the adjustment here, you'd want to double check that your saddle and your string is still in zone 2. It's usually only going to happen when you make severe adjustments, but it's always good to check that first before making more adjustments. So raise or lower the saddle and then double check tuning, and then check your height here. Once you're done, move on to the next string and do the same thing, checking your tuning in between every adjustment that you make here at the saddle heights. And that's action adjustment. This is the last adjustment in the process of setting up your guitar. Let's say that you wanted to intonate your guitar. You want to make sure that your truss rod and your neck is set up first. You've got your string action height set. You've also got your tuning and everything's in zone 2 where you want to be situated here with the saddles. And so the last step in the process is going to be intonation. Let me show you the tools that you need. First, you'll need a digital tuner, which I have here in my rack. And then secondly, you'll need this Evertune hex key. This is a 2.5 millimeter hex key that Evertune provides with the bridge. You get this with the guitar when you purchase it. For the intonation adjustment, it's really simple. You take your hex key here and you insert it here at the very end of the bridge. Here it comes out at a little slight angle. And you put your hex key in here, and this is what's going to allow you to either increase your overall string length or decrease your string length, which moves the saddle like either further away from the neck or closer towards the neck. And just quickly, we'll check that. Intonation checking is basically checking to make sure the open string, the open note there, which is an E, matches the 12th fret. So when I fret it at the 12th fret, you want that note to match the open note. Okay, maybe it's a hair sharp. So what we're going to do is, if the fretted note is sharp, we want to increase the length. So I'm going to just turn this clockwise, just a hair. Now, every time you make an adjustment here with the intonation, you want to double check the tuning again and make sure that your saddle is right where it's going to be in zone 2. Check your open note again. Check your fretted note. It's a hair sharp, so we're going to go just one more slight tweak here. Okay, We'll move on and check the other notes here, the other strings. B, open, fretted. Now most digital tuners are not 100% accurate, so you will see some slight movement here. As long as you're within a couple cents here, it's usually close enough. B string is in tune, it's intonated. Let's move on to the G string. Fretted note matches the open note. D string, that's a hair sharp when we fret it at the 12th fret, so we're going to insert our key here and we're going to turn clockwise, maybe a quarter turn. We're going to check the saddle, make sure it's in zone 2. Open note, fretted note. Open note, fretted note. Okay, check the A string. Make sure it's in zone 2, which it is, and then 12th fret matches. Check the low E. Now one thing to note when you're doing intonation is that depending on where you are in zone 2, if you're at the very front bend stop, you probably want to move it back a little bit more than that bend stop to make sure that your Evertune compensation is working correctly. Basically, if you're towards that front bend stop, it might be a little sharp if you're too far forward, so move it back just a hair beyond that bend stop. Check the fretted note and we are in tune. Okay, that's how to intonate your Evertune guitar. Second, third time you play around with these adjustments, it'll really start to make sense and it'll come to you just without even thinking. Let me show you the tools that you'll need to do this. First, I've got some string cutters here, a digital tuner, which I have here in my rack. And then next I'll need some sort of a string winder. This is an attachment that I use in my power drill. And then if you needed to make any adjustments, you'd want to have your Evertune 2.5mm hex key. Let's assume that these strings need to be changed, and what I need to do is take them all off and put them all back on again. I'll show you how easy that is. First, I'm going to take my angled string cutters and I'm going to take some of the tension off the string just slightly on all these strings. You don't have to do this, but it doesn't hurt. The last thing you want is for strings flying into people's eyes and things like that. So take a little bit of the tension off, and then I'm going to hold the strings here while I cut 2 at a time here, and of course remove all these strings. You could feed them all through the bridge and out the back, but I like to cut them right here. Everybody has their own way of doing things, of course. Just push these through and be careful with the sharp ends here while you're bringing them out the back. You'll notice they all come out the back here. There's holes here on the back plate that allows the strings in and out. And then the next thing we want to do is we're just going to grab our new set of strings, and I'm going to start with the thickest string. Just go and grab the thickest string here, and I'm going to flip the guitar around here, and if you notice here in the back you can see that there's a hole on every module. Every saddle module or string module has a hole for the string to go into. You just pop the string through there and pull it through the top. I'm going to do that for every string. The hole you can't really miss right here. It's a really large hole. You notice that the spring modules here inside the cavity here are moving around quite a bit. That's because there's no tension on there from the strings. So it's nothing to be alarmed about or worry about. And it's really easy to feed it through the top. I've worked on quite a few bridge systems where, first of all, sometimes it's impossible to find the hole, and then when you find the hole in the back, it's hard to find the matching hole in the front. And sometimes it's hard to actually feed it through the top of the saddle. And once you get the hang of this, you can move fairly quickly, of course. You want to make sure that all the ball ends here are, you can kind of see them here at the very end of the module, and they're ready to be tightened up. And I'll turn the guitar around, and basically all I want to do now is feed each string through the tuning key at the headstock. I like to hold it with my right hand and then loop it around like this with my left hand, and then I'll position the tuning key right in line so that I can just insert it there, and then I'll take it taut like this, and then I'll move it back about 1.5 to 2 inches. That'll give a few wraps. I'll wrap once around the top, pull this up, and then wrap around the bottom. And then this is the point where you'd want to have a hand winder, or in this case I'm using my screwdriver and with a little attachment on it. So we'll do that for each string. I'll go through like this, move it back about 1.5 to 2 inches, once over the top, once over the bottom of the string coming through, and then just, you want to tune this up until the string is tight. So we'll do that for all the strings. Okay, once all the strings are tight enough here that they're not slack on the neck, then what I like to do is take these string ends, push them down with my thumb, and make sure they're not sticking out, and then I'll cut them really tight with my cutters. All right, so we've got our strings cut cleanly on the end, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to just tune the strings up. Now, assuming that you've put the same gauge of strings on and you had it set up previously, like we discussed, setting your saddles into zone 2 and setting your tuning and everything, all you're going to need to do on these is once you put your strings in and you've got them tight, you just want to start tuning it up until your saddle moves into zone 2. And right here at the bridge, we can see the saddles moving up. And we're just going to position them into zone 2. Now all the saddles are positioned into zone 2, and we're in tune. It's as easy as that.